Welcome to the Painting of the Week podcast, where we look at some of the most significant paintings throughout history. Introducing your hosts, Phil Grabsky and Laura Bentham.
Well, here we are, Painting of the Week, and my name's Phil.
And I'm Laura.
Today we are talking about Hunters in the Snow by Pieter Bruegel the Elder. Some think this is the most popular image of winter. But you know who that some is. I don't
Christmas card makers.
Christmas card makers.
Because everybody must have had this painting as a Christmas card.
That's true.
I feel they would have done.
This painting is from 1565. It is in the Kunsthistorische Museum in Vienna.
Oh.
And it is fabulous. I regret we'd just made a film about Bosch. Fabulous. It was his 500th anniversary. They'd got practically every extant, i.e. surviving painting and drawing of his, into one gallery in the Netherlands, and we had exclusive access. We made a film about him. And at about the same time, there was a big Bruegel exhibition in Vienna, and we just couldn't afford to do both. But it's a real shame, because I'd have loved to have made a film about Bruegel on the back of a big exhibition where they brought a lot of the paintings together, because his paintings are all over the place. This is genuinely one of my favourites. How about you?
Well, we were talking about this beforehand. That with every time I was like, okay, we're doing this painting this week. I don't really know him, no. And every time I get to talk to you, they're all my favourite. I love them all. And it would be quite nice to try and find something I don't like. But I love this. I love this so much. And I just like him. I think he must have had a really great sense of humour, because he does some really fabulous other paintings as well, which we can come on to later, as you always say. But yeah, this is great.
I think the starting point for a painting like this is to imagine, which I suppose isn't so hard because there's so much snow, but imagine the white canvas. So imagine, scrape all that off, and then look again and think, wow, it is unbelievable how he has created a totally believable, far-reaching landscape where there is so much narrative, there are so many stories, and it is just, I mean, I just think it's the most brilliant painting. There's something interesting about this painting, though, for me, which I think is worth talking about. I think sometimes paintings have particular resonance, or you particularly admire them because of the way that they interconnect with your own biography. And you mentioned about Christmas cards, so maybe, you know, something about this painting strikes home for you because it reminds you of Christmases you had when you were a kid. For me, this painting has a particular resonance because in a kind of strange way, in my own biography, I mean, I was brought up in Britain, and there was a period of a few years when I lived in a town called Macclesfield, which is in the north near Manchester. And, you know, my life was had a particular direction and a particular kind of mood to it. But my sister married a wonderful German. She moved to Germany, and there were a number of years when we used to go to Germany at Christmas, and it was an exposure to a completely different world. They were living in Berlin, West Berlin.
Right.
So going to West Berlin as a kind of 8, 9, 10-year-old, 11-year-old, was so exciting because, of course, at the time, you were surrounded by the Soviet Union, well, East Germany, which was part of the Soviet Union. So you had certain channels. There was only 3 roads in. There was, you know, it was complicated to get there. West Berlin was divided into zones: the French zone, the American zone, the British zone. East Berlin was obviously under the Russians. but also my brother-in-law was very cultured, and so I had exposure to art. And even though I was quite young, he would, at least once every Christmas, he'd take me to the Berlin Philharmonic, which is partly where my love of classical music comes from. Then my brother-in-law and sister bought a kind of flat in West Germany where they would go to for their holidays. And so we had a number of wonderful Christmases there. So this for me kind of connects back to something in my own past. It reminds me of Middle European Christmases where we'd go for walks, trudging through the snow. And, occasionally we might stop in, not so much an inn perhaps, but a cafe. And so I love that. I also love paintings where there's, something like a Rothko can be a bit frustrating to me because, yes, you can get lost in the 2 or 3 bands of colour, but there's not enough narrative. I like stories. I like narrative. I used to get lost in books as a kid. I could gobble up books. This painting is just so much going on. You cannot see it all first time. And the other thing about it is that really interesting mix between the harsh reality of it, which is stark, and the fact that despite everything, they're having fun. So, you have a look, the hunters are returning with their dogs. And to be honest, it looks like it's been a pretty unsuccessful hunt.
Yeah.
They've got like one animal on the back of their stick there. And this is, 16th century Europe was a tough place to be. I mean, obviously you can't necessarily see this in the painting, but I mean, if you got toothache, if you got certain diseases, I mean, you were finished. Hunger. I mean, I've seen this in Afghanistan where life is just, first and foremost, it's about food.
Yeah.
You live in the countryside in Afghanistan and your whole life is about having some land, getting some seeds, ploughing the land, planting the seeds, hoping for rain, sowing the crops, taking it down to the water mill to get it ground. And that's just for flour, to make bread. Mm-hmm. Nothing else. That's just for bread. We can go to the supermarket. We don't think about it. But you can imagine in Europe at the time, number one concern was food. And I believe, actually, there was a period until relatively recently when 95%, I mean, statistics have to be a bit cautious of believing every statistic you hear, but I have read 95% of the world's population were concerned with food, the creation and distribution of food. And yet, look at all the little pictures, look at all the little scenes going on. It's a Christmas scene. Maybe they're coming back on a weekend, on a Saturday or something. There's all sorts of games going on those lakes.
I know. It's so good. I think me and you have definitely had a different life, Phil, because I used to go to my nan's at Christmas, every Christmas. This was probably maybe then where the card may have been on the mantelpiece.
Yeah.
And they had their little, artificial Christmas tree from Woolworths. It was fab. And we were in Mulscoombe, so we weren't far from where we are sitting right now. And but I think the only connection we might have had then, because of you being in Berlin, is the fact that it was fun.
Yeah.
We had nothing but fun. And they didn't have a lot. And we always had bags of fun. So I definitely haven't got a connection with this painting, except for the fact that, like I say, it may have been on the mantelpiece. But Nanny and Grandad definitely were great at sorting out food for whatever budget they had, and we always had a lovely, lovely time. I mean, it was actually one of the best times. Yeah, she was great, my Nan.
Well, maybe that's part of the appeal of the painting.
Yeah,
is that we for many of us, Christmas, not all of us, of course, but many of us, Christmas is associated with a time of fun. Yeah,
be with the family. And I don't think Mulscoombe was generally covered in that much snow. Sometimes down in the south we used to get a bit of snow, more than we do now. But Yeah, that's something. So are they some of those people on that? Is that a frozen lake in the painting?
It could be two frozen lakes, or it could just be two frozen fields, frankly. And I mean, Bruegel. I mean, as I was mentioning earlier, the artist that he kind of follows is Hieronymus Bosch. Hieronymus Bosch is just the most extraordinary artist. I mean, 500 years ago, but I mean, if you ever get a chance to look at a Bosch, it looks like it was painted yesterday. His imagination is off the scale.
Yeah, it's quite something.
And I mean, Bruegel also dealt with, societies at this time were extremely religious. I mean, they made sense of the world through their religions, that's some of Bruegel's works reflect that. This, as much as we know, was actually a commission for a large house outside Antwerp, I believe.
Right.
And I don't know if there's any evidence, but it's now known as the months. So some have thought that perhaps he was commissioned to paint 12 paintings representing the months. 5 have survived, and actually the thoughts now are that actually each painting represents 2 months.
Oh, okay.
So this is representing January and February. He clearly studied the work of Bosch, no question about it. But like all artists, he studied all the artists that went before him. Like Bosch, I mean, his ability to paint really small, detailed figures is breathtaking. I mean, start looking into the distance of this painting. I mean, formally, really clever. So again, just step back from it a second. You've got the hunters coming back. They've caught one fox.
Yeah.
You've got their posts. Again, the posts are pointing down the hill. But look at those trees.
Yes.
Bang, bang, bang. It's musical. It's notation. It is a rhythm that takes you bosh, bosh, bosh. I shouldn't say bosh.
No.
But, note by note down the hill. And you can tell that they're tired. They're trudging through. The dogs look thin and shabby and hungry. To the left, I guess that's the blacksmith at work there.
Yeah, who knows?
That seems like a pretty... Actually, if you look carefully, it looks like he may be doing a horse's hoof in the fire there.
Yeah.
So all that's in the kind of foreground, the trees are beautifully rendered and the birds are beautifully rendered. Go down the hill, and of course, there's all these different plains. But before we look at the nearer plains, look at the far distance. Look at that village.
Yeah.
That village is almost photographic. I mean, you can count the amount of houses there, and you can tell that it's, a tight little circle of buildings around a tall steeple of a church. Unbelievable. Start looking in the trees, again in the distance, beautiful perspective. You've got a big house, maybe that's a monastery or something in the lee of the mountains. But again, tiny little people.
It's quite something. It's a bit of a slope that going down, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's... I've kind of wondered what the path was, but then I thought maybe it drops to the right.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of a local hill here that I run down sometimes, and it's really quite steep. But again, actually, if you look carefully, where the first guy is almost black. He's almost disappeared.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There are the sense of footsteps going straight down where he's going, so following the lee of the trees. It's almost like going down a ski slope next to the ski lift, isn't it?
Yeah.
Somewhere I remember, I can't find it. Somewhere I'm sure there's a chimney on fire that people are rushing to.
Oh
yeah, right. Oh, that's interesting. I need to zoom in. Sorry, because we're looking.
I've zoomed in. I'm on all the lakes, the 2 lakes.
Sorry, I'm on the Seventh Art website where you can see the picture. And of course, we're lucky these days because you can get these high resolution stills. So if you look very carefully, there is a chimney on fire. That's obviously a disaster if the house goes up.
Yeah.
So all those people, you can see there's a couple that are already on the rushing up onto the roof. You can try and put that out. I guess they just need to cover it and extinguish the air supply. So you were saying you were looking at the...
and the people on the lake.
So what do we see on the lake? Let's have a look.
Because I was thinking, stupidly, I thought they were, when we first mentioned it, they were ice skating, but I'm assuming they probably didn't have ice skates.
No, they definitely did.
Did they?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, because I was saying to you, when the kids were little, I used to take them ice skating, on those outside ones.
Okay,
nice to get nice confidence on.
You know that really odd game in the Olympics, and forgive me if anyone plays it, but curling. Curling.
Yeah.
So those people there, so it's 450 years ago, but there they are. They're curling with their in the lake.
And there isn't actually anybody with the brush, which is the best bit. Because that's all anyone thinks, isn't it?
You've got a couple of kids.
To train for that game, you have to go around and sweep your house. It's amazing. Oh, God. I'm sure we're going to get comments about that. I feel bad now.
Again, in Berlin, the lakes used to freeze and we'd go ice skating.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And that was very common. Or even, Amsterdam. London.
Yeah.
There's a very famous moment when William Shakespeare, his theatre burns down. But what's left... Oh, no, sorry. Did it burn down or did something go wrong? Anyway, the Thames was frozen and overnight... this is the story. They took a whole load of the wood across the river to the other side to where the globe now is, and they rebuilt, started building the globe. The point of the story is that the Thames was frozen.
Yeah. You said about this, actually, in the first one.
Okay.
In our first podcast.
Well,
because I learned so much.
Never one for not repeating myself, me. But
but I think it's really good because some people have not listened to that one.
But I mean, the Thames was wider at that point. Therefore, the water was slower, and therefore it would freeze, and people could walk across it. You could skate on it. You could have fairs on it.
Oh,
in fact, when they built the embankment, that sped the water up until it becomes virtually impossible. But canals, I remember being in St. Petersburg recently, or 2-3 years ago, making a project. And basically, I was looking out my hotel window, watching the canals freeze in front of me. And in Berlin, the lakes would freeze, and Berlin's got lots of beautiful lakes. And we'd go ice skating. And it was packed. And it was just like this, exactly like this. And so you look down there, there's even a dog on there, people playing hockey. There's some kids in a row. Yeah. There's some people who aren't very... I mean, we're looking at an enlarged image.
Yes.
So with his tiny little brush...
Yeah.
He's got their little faint shadows. There's somebody on a sled.
Yeah.
There's a mother and child.
A couple of people have fallen.
Somebody's fallen down. Someone else.
That's me when I've got overconfident.
Yeah, 3 people fallen down.
Yeah. Knocked out a couple of people with penguins.
Meanwhile, there's a guy trudging in with his cart. Looks like he's got wood on it.
Yeah.
Again, that's how life was. No wood, no fire, no heat. You're dead, basically. So wood was everything. In the distance, you've got... It's hard to tell if those rivers are frozen. I imagine they are, but there's somebody going over a bridge. It's just a lovely scene, isn't it? It is just apart from now the people with the chimney on fire. And like you say, it's hard work, but it does look like a really nice place to be. It looks like they're making the best of it. And there's no shadows. The sun looks like it's set. I guess this is the end of a day. Everything's black. There's no people, no facial, it's all...
No.
So, I mean, it's very much representation of a typical village with typical people. I just think that this sense of being... I mean, it is, again, cinematic. You've gone up to the highest point. Yeah. You're looking down. And you've got... I mean, you could look at that endlessly. You could create all sorts of storylines going on in this picture.
Well, that was what I was saying about his little sense of humour, because I looked at one of his other paintings, Netherlandish, and there's 100 proverbs.
Yeah, that's right.
In that painting, and they're really. I think if anyone gets a chance to go and have a look at that painting, and there's lots of people, there's lots online saying what all the proverbs are. Going back to my nan, I don't want to bore everybody, but she was always saying something, one of them being, if there's enough blue to make a pair of sailor's trousers, it's going to be a sunny day.
There's enough glue.
Blue. Yeah. And we've lived the whole... Whenever the children were going out, I was like, no, we've got to say that, because if it's going to be a nice day, Nan said. So I love a proverb.
That's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, but it really works.
I guess all sailors wore blue trousers.
But also it depends on the size of the sailor, because quite often there's literally nothing there, but we're always making it up.
Can you remember any other proverbs?
I wish I'd written them down now. But anyway, there's a few, and he's done lots in that painting. There's lots. One of them being the blind leader the blind.
Oh, yeah.
Which he then actually done a full painting of. But I like his little sense of humour. And it just seems to come through that he seems to have quite a nice nature.
He has, I mean, he and Bosch before him, the amount of stuff they get into a painting. If you look at Bruegel'S The Triumph of Death.
Oh, I did look at that. And I loved it.
I mean, that's in the Prado, and there is so many. I mean, there's so much. There's hundreds and hundreds of little stories going on.
Yes,
they're all pretty shocking.
They are.
It's not.
Not for the faint-hearted, maybe.
Not for the faint-hearted. I mean, it's just full of different ways you're going to die, and hundreds and hundreds of skulls. But there's that edge of humour which Bosch had too.
Yeah, I really love that painting. Oh no, I think this has been another great week. I thought I was so lucky to go home and have a quick look at all these things. I never really did it before. I think people might have gathered that. But yeah, it's just so good. But yeah, I love that painting, The Triumph of Death. It's another really good one.
I think these, I mean, I don't know. I'm guessing somewhat that people might, when they go to a gallery, might go straight to the, French Impressionists or the Dutch masters. I mean, or even the Spanish masters. But, you overlook these kind of the Low Countries. Again, we mentioned this before, but, again, history plays such a role. And you had a kind of battle royal going on here where you had the Catholic Spanish who occupied quite a big area of what we now think of as the Netherlands and Belgium. And then you also had a whole part of it which kind of rejected Catholicism and was, their churches weren't covered in paintings of saints and Christ on the cross and so forth. Much more gritty, much more about human experience. So again, we saw that with Vermeer, where what he's focusing on are women reading letters or pouring milk or playing musical instruments. Yeah. Rather than the trials and tribulations of Christ. But this is an extraordinary period where, what are we talking? This is the 16th century. So 16th century, the global exploration that's happening is completely changing the world. Yeah, right. So the Dutch, for example, are, out in the Far East. Pretty soon behind them come the Portuguese and the Spanish. I think a boat arrived from across the seas, arrived in Seville every 2 days. Oh, okay. So you can imagine the stories and the goods that were coming back and the knowledge of the world coming back. We think we know everything. I mean, certainly... I don't feel... No, but you can go online and you can find out anything. There are very few places in the world that have not been photographed or filmed. The world has been mapped. There are hundreds of new satellites going up every month. Yeah. Every year, whatever. But this is a time when they've only really... trying to think, this is 1565, so Portuguese land in Brazil, 1500? It's only 50, 60 years before. Magellan, he circumnavigates the globe in about 1520. Again, it's like a few decades. So 45 years before us now, 1980? I can remember 1980. So imagine that 1980 was when the first time somebody sailed around the globe.
Yeah.
We're still, you'd still be going through the ramifications of that. Cortez is and what's his name? Pizarro. They're out in decimating what we call the Aztecs and the Incas, but the native. So it's all going on.
Yeah.
And what's happening, of course, is that you are bringing back this enormous wealth. So you're stealing all this gold and extraordinary artifacts from the Americas, from Asia. Yeah. And that's impacting upon painters in two different ways. One, it might be affecting what they paint, but it's certainly affecting their commissioning. So this painting, Hunters in the Snow, is commissioned by a guy who's become wealthy in Antwerp.
Oh, okay.
So, and he wants big paintings. And he, I don't know, and I don't know if anyone knows whether he gave him, commissioning detail beyond just saying, I want the months represented. But, he might have had big walls, he wanted big paintings. Yeah. So Bruegel is there thinking, well, I've got to fill these paintings. I can't just put snow and trees. So there's plenty going on that leads to this painting. And again, we probably say this every podcast, but pretty much if you see if I pulled out 100 paintings and within them were 5 Bruegels, you'd probably identify them. That's a sign of a great artist.
Yeah.
The one thing that should be said about Bruegel, though, is he had 2 sons and they did do a lot of copies of their father's work.
Okay.
So sometimes actually you can get confused between what's by the younger and what's by the elder. But the elders...
Did his sons do well, do you reckon?
Yeah.
They did?
I mean, they clearly they had quite a workshop going on.
Yeah.
And once you'd made your name, which Bruegel had, and as I said, you had plenty of people willing to commission and buy your work. Not that much of Bosch has survived.
Really?
In fact, I think in that exhibition, there were only about 40 works. So that's drawings and paintings that have survived.
Right.
I think that's about 90% of what survived. Bruegel is more. I think I've read somewhere there's 42 paintings that have survived.
Really? That's quite a long time ago, isn't it, really? Surprising.
In some ways, it is amazing that any survive, isn't it? If you think about the trials and tribulations of... and bear in mind, he dies. He's not an old...
No.
So... Dies in 1569, so... I don't know if it's not... Is there some... Have you got any idea when he's born? I can't remember.
1525.
1525, maybe. So he's only...
Yeah. No, I must have got that wrong. Oh, no.
He's born... It's certainly in the 1520s.
Yeah.
So he's only in 40s.
Yes. Yeah. Were his paintings on wood? Have I got that wrong? I'm questioning myself constantly here today. I think it's the heat again.
Is this painting on wood? I mean,
I thought they were for some reason. I've learnt so much recently about all these different artists.
It is absolutely possible that this is not on canvas and it's on wood panels.
Yeah. No,
I don't know the answer.
I might have got that confused with somebody else. So
I'm I don't know the answer.
Sure that some lovely people will write in and tell us.
I mean, it is. It's a very different. It presents all sorts of different challenges in terms of the conservation if you're painting on a wood panel.
Yeah.
Because obviously, if the wood starts to become damaged or.
But I think I must have got that wrong. Because, like you said, look, it's a white canvas, maybe.
No, I'm not sure. He certainly did paint on panels, but whether this is or not, I don't know.
No.
Again, we have
I still can't even believe that curling was happening. When we pulled that through and had a look at this, I mean, that just goes to show you how far back that goes.
I just think, just try with a very fine black pen on a white piece of paper to draw. Okay, you see that there's a couple there where somebody's standing and then somebody's starting to skate. Just try to draw that and make it look in any way realistic.
Yeah.
It's so hard. I mean, impossible, I think.
Every week we go off, we think we're going to go and do some more drawing, don't we? Or some painting. Have we done any yet?
Oh, I mean, too busy making films.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure. I'm busy, but not making films.
Actually, looking again at the second lake,
Yes.
it looks to me like it's quite interesting. So the character sitting down on the bump. There's an old boy there. He's got his hands in his pockets with his dogs. He's an old guy with his skates. To the left is what to me suggests that maybe this was a lake, because that seems like it's one of those sluice, where you lift it up to let the water out. Don't know. Also, if you look at the two guys to the left who have almost like they're holding onto the same sticks.
Yeah.
Behind them is a hole. And I think that is possibly where you see, a fishing hole.
Oh, the fishing, yeah.
So again, this is different. I mean, and of course, lake villages survived on water, so you needed.
There's a couple of.
I do like the guy. If you go to the right, past that couple, one person standing, one person, and the person who's fallen over to the right, he's landed on his head.
I know.
I mean,
it's so cute.
That is really. He looks like he's clutching his knees in pain. There's a little kiddie there, and then there's somebody pulling a sled. It's just brilliant.
It is.
The more you look at them,
it is.
There's a couple of people sitting on the edge.
I met your sister for the first time the other day, so I wonder if this is one of her favourite paintings because of exactly the same reasons.
Maybe. I mean, you can't.
Once you start looking at those people, it's just lovely.
That's why, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I adore going to Europe because you can go, you travel through. Well, I mean, Germany's just been hit by the most awful floods. We go through Germany. Those kind of houses that you can see there, again, beautifully rendered.
Yeah.
They'll exist just like that.
Yeah.
And
I've not been to Germany.
Oh, you'd absolutely love it.
No, I know I would.
It's a wonderful one. Big country. People don't quite know how big it is.
Yeah.
But, those buildings will still be there and there'll now be a baccarat or a, whatever. There'll be a cafe or a restaurant or a...
Oh.
But, I mean...
Happy days.
Still...
Yeah.
It's just brilliant. The more you look at the detail...
I know.
The steeple... And the fact that there's little kind of snow that's caught on the slats there.
When you go right into the background, there looks like there's another village over there. Look, right on the right.
Well, that's what I was talking about.
Oh, sorry, right beyond that tree.
No, I think that's amazing, that village.
Yeah.
Again, it's totally believable. And again, we've zoomed right in, and the craft of this guy. Actually, if you look, that's interesting, which I hadn't noticed before. So that is actually, you can see little boats.
Oh, yeah.
So either that's on the edge of a big lake or a big river or even the sea. Yeah. I mean, look, this is actually, and then if you look, that looks like, okay. If you look further back, that's a coast, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a bay.
So everybody is
we're
possible.
On the edge. We're actually on the edge of... I mean, look, he's probably made it up.
Well,
I'm not sure he's...
It's fabulous if he's made it up.
But I mean, he's suggesting a coastline on the edge of some mountains, isn't he?
I think if everyone has a little chance to have a look. And then when you get your Christmas cards this year...
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds horrible, but you sort of just, don't you, pick them out and sort of look, oh, lovely, put it on the wall. That's so-and-so. If they still like me, stick it up. Now I'm going to look a bit more closely at what I get sent.
If ever there's an example of a reason to just spend a little bit more time looking.
Yeah.
And look, I've just seen something new, which I've never seen before. So if you go right to the back, there's a couple of things of interest there. So you've got a tall post in the snow.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I've not noticed that before, but in Britain we have the... what are those dances called?
Maypoles.
Maypoles. So that's probably a maypole that people would dance around.
Yeah. Oh, hello. Sorry.
And then the other thing is, if you look down, there's a guy in the snow. I think he's hunting ducks with some kind of
Oh, yeah.
blunderbuss. Because at the end of that, he's just put a little spot of red.
Yes.
And again, he's got that hunched over shoulders thing. And to his right, there are 3 birds. Maybe they're ducks, maybe they're geese, maybe something that are flying away. So he's obviously
Oh, yes.
failed to hit them.
Yeah. He's just, yeah.
And then right to the right of that, you see a couple of paths going up. Oh, it's just brilliant. It's just, I mean, it's almost unbelievable, actually. Those trees, again, we're looking at, I'm at 100% magnification now. And those trees still look utterly believable.
Yeah, great.
Not a smudge. I mean, I could walk into that location. There could be South Downs. Fabulous.
Yeah.
Good choice. Laura?
Yes.
Well, let's enjoy the sun while we have
Yes.
it, because the snows will come soon enough.
They will. They will.
But if anyone's feeling a little hot, then have a look at this painting. It might cool you down.
Thank you for listening to the Painting of the Week podcast. For more information, please visit our website at seventh-art.com or contact us by emailing info@seventh-art.com. See you next time.